Hi, and welcome to the Personal Productivity Hacks webinar. My name is Brian Servino, and I am a product marketing manager here at Trello. I'm also joined by Katie Cogdell, our support specialist. So before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that I'll be emailing a recording of this webinar, a link to the slide deck, and useful blog posts and links over the next few days and weeks after this webinar. So feel free to ask any questions in the GoToWebinar question box, and Katie and I will try and address as many as possible. If by chance your question does not get answered, please email us at support@trello.com so that we can make sure to get it answered for you. Also, today I'll be talking about some tips and tools that I enjoy, but if you have any personal advice or tips that help you work better and be more productive, please share them in the GoToWebinar question box so that we can share them with everyone else after the presentation. So today I'll be talking about productivity, which means making sure you're getting done what you need to do, but also what you want to do. We're going to look at some tools that you can use if you aren't already in your day-to-day work and life to help you build a better workflow, help you collaborate better with teams, and communicate more effectively, so that hopefully not only will you be getting more done than you did before, but you'll be getting things done with greater success. So really the goal here is to introduce a few high-level concepts in a short period of time during this webinar to give you some takeaways that you can dive deeper into on your own time and look into adding into your workflow. So this webinar is meant for anyone that not only wants to learn some philosophies of how to be more productive, but kind of also learn about the tools, technological trends, and apps making it easier to be more productive in your day-to-day life. I think having a strong productivity system is not only important in my work life, but for instance, whether I'm working with our content management team or we're working on a new marketing campaign, but also in my personal life when I'm working on music projects with clients or planning a vacation and just trying to live healthier. So let's start by taking a look at what is productivity, which of course is the million-dollar question. And the million-dollar question that I'm not getting paid $1 million to answer. But I would love to give you, productivity. It's something that we've heard from so many people defined in so many ways. And so this is kind of just how, I like to think of productivity for my own self and my own life. So ultimately, productivity is not just about, getting things done. It's about making sure you're getting the right things done in the right time frame in a successful and effective way. And this starts by setting, realistic goals, breaking down those goals into actionable items, and at the end of it all, asking myself, did I accomplish something meaningful with a measurable impact from what I had set out to do? So for me, personally, productivity means that I only have a finite amount of time, finite resources, but there's a lot I want to do with my life, whether that involves career ambitions or personal life ambitions. I'm working with a lot of people all the time, and I want to make sure that I see through everything that I set out to do, both on a personal level and with my teams. So having a good productivity system in order and an effective workflow that you enjoy is great, not only for work, whether that's project management, launching a new business, or starting a side project, but it's also really great for your personal life, like planning a wedding or a holiday party. I think being productive means you will be able to manage all of the time in your life better and get more done. And so it's important that you ask yourself, what do you want to accomplish? How would you like to get more things done in your life? And what goals do you want to start setting to fulfill and achieve the projects that you set out to do? So let's take a look at, ways we can set goals, prioritize the tasks to achieve those goals, and become better at managing our time so that we can be more productive. The first thing is to establish the goal we want to achieve and then prioritize the tasks involved in achieving that goal. Breaking it down step by step into tasks to accomplish the goal, all within a set timeline. So take a moment, ask yourself, what is the goal that you want to achieve in your life? Ideally, I think this is something that you should truly be passionate about, something you want to wake up and tackle every morning, something that you truly care about, but also something that is, realistic. So with that goal in mind, think about what getting to the finish line looks like. And the finish line, I mean achieving that goal. From there, it's important to work backwards, considering all the steps and tasks it takes to get to that goal. So making an effective plan is not about, it's not only about what I want to do on a day-to-day basis, but what I want to be in the long run. So write down every step along the way and also write down the big picture, the why of the goal or mission and statement. Maybe an example for me in my personal life could be wanting to learn to play the violin. I'm a musician, and I might set a goal of performing the violin at a concert someday. So I want to set a realistic goal. Maybe within a year of practice, I could accomplish that goal. But what's going back? And so why? It's because I'm passionate about music. I'm passionate about sharing music with people, and I'm passionate about fulfilling my desires to be a better musician. So working back, it involves booking that, establishing the concert I'm going to play, booking the concert, making sure I'm rehearsing, picking songs to rehearse, working all the way back to just buying that violin and making that first scheduled practice, class with an instructor. So understanding, having a finish line and then understanding the steps how we're going to get there are super important. And so, like I said, understanding, it's important to understand the big picture, the why of the goal or mission statement. And you really want to reference this mission statement every day so that it becomes a part of your subconscious thought. This will give you the confidence needed to achieve the goal and perform tasks in the day-to-day more effectively around your goal. When you set a goal and you start working on the tasks to achieve that goal, it's also possible to lose perspective and no longer understand the why of what you're trying to achieve. So make sure that you take the time to step back and reflect and understand that even mundane tasks that might seem tedious or not exciting are a part of a larger project that is going to bring fulfillment to your life. I think it's also important to constantly improve. Not only does this mean improving the steps it takes to achieve your goal, it also means sometimes your productivity system or even just yourself. Improving the steps, the process along the way, will help you not only achieve your goal, but perhaps, excuse me, achieve it in a shorter time frame and do an even better job than you set out to do. So with a goal established in mind, it's time to break down the steps to achieve the goal and prioritize that task. So how do we prioritize? And what does it mean to even prioritize? So I think prioritization for me means having a purpose-driven path where you are aware of what you need to do, are capable of doing, and then being able to delegate anything else that requires help or that gets in the way. So one reason why a lot of productivity systems fail is because we often have too much on our plate and we have to-do lists that are just too long. So being able to say yes to the right things that will help us achieve our goals and making sure not to say no, making sure to say no to all the rest of the clutter that prevents us from achieving our goals is important when prioritizing tasks. You have to remember that by having a clear understanding of the why when working on a goal means that we can easily discard any tasks that do not live up to that mission statement. It's important to recognize that achieving your goals often requires collaboration with others. And so the sooner you recognize your strengths and weaknesses, it will be easier to delegate the tasks of what you might not achieve as well to the others in your life to help you fulfill your grander vision. And also, another reason, big reason why our systems fail here is fear. I think fear is often the reason that we are unable to prioritize and get tasks accomplished. So fear can keep us in a loop of self-doubt, which hinders productivity. And so once we face our fears, it's much easier to move forward with our goal, prioritize our tasks, and accomplish more. So let's take a look at a few techniques that will help you, prioritize what you have to do and make sure that you're doing the tasks that are going to have the most impact. Of course, there are tons of different techniques out there probably for ways to prioritize your tasks. I'm just going to go over a few right now. So one technique is to apply the 80-20 rule when planning out tasks to do. And the 80-20 rule states that 20% of your tasks are probably going to have 80% of the impact. And so by addressing these tasks first and prioritizing them, you can let other tasks that may not be as impactful fall by the wayside or assign them to someone else. You may have heard of the 80-20 rule when it comes to sales in the business world, in that 80% of your profits will come from 20% of your customers. And so you want to spend your time nurturing the 20% of your customers that are going to bring the most profits to your company. And I think you should think of your tasks and prioritization of tasks in that way, because often a lot of tasks are going to have diminishing returns. And so really it's best to focus your time wisely on the tasks that are going to have the biggest impact on what you're trying to do. So the one way that I like to think about the 80-20 rule in my life is considering that I only have so much time and energy. If I have two tasks, let's say one is to make a video that's maybe going to reach 100 people, be viewed by 100 people, versus a well-constructed newsletter that is going to reach 1 million people. What's going to have the most impact? For me, it might be crafting that newsletter and spending a little more time and effort on that, because it'll be reaching a much larger audience and it's most likely going to be a more valuable use of my time. I have to recognize that I don't have the bandwidth to do every task or create every asset or do everything that I want to do in my work life. And so picking the few tasks that are really going to have the largest impact, are probably going to help me strategize and prioritize my days and weeks and months better. So one of my favorite prioritization hacks is the rule of five, which was developed by one of our founders, Joel Spolsky. And so the concept behind that is that you never have more than 5 things to do in your to-do list. There should be 2 tasks you're working on right now, 2 tasks that you plan on working on next, and 1 task that people might be expecting you to work on. But you're actually not really planning on working on it. And while that might sound counterintuitive, the idea behind that is to really be honest with ourselves for what we might not be doing, but also to be honest with our teammates. So this allows it to be easier to delegate tasks to other people that might be able to pick up the tasks that you are just not going to do, whether it's because you just don't have time or you just honestly can't get to it. So prioritizing and working on only 2 things at once is really important because it makes good use of our limited mental resources, and it prevents us from getting too much anxiety from having too much to do. Also, if we have too many items on our to-do list, then we're constantly jumping back and forth between tasks, and we can suffer from context switching, which essentially makes us less effective and less productive workers because we're working without focus. In all reality, sometimes you're going to have more than 2 things, on your plate. I like to look at it as more like 2 higher level tasks, 2 bigger goals. Maybe one thing that I'm going to be on my to-do list is writing a new article for the blog. In reality, there's some steps underneath that, like getting the images made and doing the drafts and getting a copy edited. But the one of my 2 tasks would just be that blog post, and maybe the other one is this webinar. So I like to consider it more like high-level tasks that really require a lot of focus because there are multiple moving parts within that task. So the third prioritization task system that I'm going to cover, as I said, the many that are out there in the world, is the Eisenhower Matrix. And this was developed by the 34th US President, Dwight D. Eisenhower. And what it allows you to do is create a system to prioritize the most important tasks so that they don't get lost to the sudden unexpected tasks that arise out of nowhere. So the idea here is that all of your tasks can be sorted into 4 quadrants with axes of important and urgent on either side. And these 4 quadrants are given number values of 1 through 4 based on their priority. So tasks that fall into the both important and urgent receive a priority level of 1 and really should be your focus. For instance, as I mentioned earlier, writing that blog post for today. On the other hand of the spectrum, tasks that are deemed both not important and not urgent, they should be put to the wayside. So for instance, maybe that is, whether or not I really need to check my Twitter feed, or sorting through junk mail as in this example. And in the middle, there are tasks that can either be scheduled for next up or delegated to someone else. And so assigning a task to each quadrant, it helps remove decision making from the process, which helps you stay productive by removing the emotional overload from the equation and letting you truly focus on what's important. So with a manageable to-do list and less anxiety because we aren't overwhelmed with too much to do, um, let's look at some ways that we can improve our time management to get our prioritized tasks done. So more and more studies show that multitasking is terrible for our productivity. And while it might feel like we are getting more done in our heads, we're actually working less effectively and therefore wasting time and productivity. So here are just a few of the many ways that one can better structure their time to be more productive. So a great way to not only manage time but also make sure that we are working with focus is to employ the Pomodoro Technique. And what this means is that you're blocking out 25 minutes of uninterrupted focus. And while that does seem really easy, it's actually way harder than you think. Um, you know, when you start, just be reasonable with yourself and really just try starting with one block a day of uninterrupted focus. This means, heads down, um, just pick a task that can be accomplished in 25 minutes and slowly work on that task, really letting nothing creep in from the inside. And if you're actually able to do that, slowly expand to more and more Pomodoro sessions of 25-minute blocks. Francesco Cirillo, the creator of the Pomodoro Technique, breaks it down into 5 simple steps. So choose the task to be accomplished, set a timer to 25 minutes, work on the task until the Pomodoro rings, and then put a check on your sheet of paper, marking that's done. Or drag that task to your done list on your Trello board. Take a break, 5-minute break, and this marks the completion of one Pomodoro. So do 4 of those and then take a longer break. And there's actually a lot of great tools. If you go to pomodorotechnique.com, there are a lot of great tools and timers that can help you implement the Pomodoro, in the form of browser extensions and apps. You can even add a Pomodoro timer to Trello, which is really cool. Because that way you don't have to jump out of Trello when you're working on your tasks. You can just set the timer and go. Next up is time boxing. And so this technique, as you know, we all know too well that it's way too easy to fall into a 60 or 80-hour work week because there's just so much to get done. But time boxing sets limits. It says, I'm only going to work 35 or 40 hours a week, and I'm going to get my task done in that time. And by working within that time frame, you're going to be more effective and efficient because you're driven to do so. Also, you're not going to overextend yourself by working an 8-hour week where you're just going to get tired and ultimately wind up doing work that is of lesser quality. So by setting, defined limits of how much work you're going to put into a week in a reasonable, healthy way, and then really focusing to make sure you get those tasks done that 40 hours, a regular work week, you're going to find that you're going to be more realistic about the tasks that you're going to get done. You're going to have a healthier lifestyle, and you're going to be recharged and remotivated to work every week. So batching is a really simple technique that allows you to combine a lot of similar small tasks to be accomplished in one sitting. I learned this from a blog post by Olivia Darby, who employs the batching technique on tasks like scheduling social media posts for an entire week, which she does all at once. By sitting down and getting this out of the way in one sitting, it turns 7 tasks, scheduling social media every single day, into a single task, which gives her more time, more day-to-day time during your day-to-day to focus on other tasks. So think of the other tasks that can be batched, like catching up on all of your emails at once, or filling out any tedious forms or paperwork, filing expenses and receipts. Do these types of tasks at once so that your mind is not doing piecemeal work all day, but instead is limiting that to specific blocks or batches. Another important technique is to follow your body's ultradian rhythm. The ultradian rhythm is made up of 90 to 120-minute cycles where you're going to be at peak productivity followed by 20-minute lulls. And so what you want to do is focus on your most difficult tasks during your most productive cycles, and then the less mentally intensive tasks during those 20-minute lulls. So how do we find our ultradian rhythm? Well, what you want to do is log and score on a scale of 1 to 10 your focus, excuse me, your focus, energy, and motivation for every waking hour, every day for 3 weeks, which might sound like a lot, but it's not. After 3 weeks, you can review your logs and you'll start to notice trends in your scores, which will enable you to zone in on your most productive hours and your most productive days. These are probably the days and hours that you should be focusing on your hardest tasks. It's also good to keep a journal of when you're feeling most or least energetic and productive, and making notes on any circumstances that might have impacted that day. For instance, maybe you had a cold, or maybe you felt lethargic after lunch, or perked up after an afternoon coffee break. All these things can help you dial in once again to your most productive hours, the circumstances that can impact performance, and therefore when and how you should be working. So then in the end, you want to take all these findings to figure out the schedule, where you are most productive. You might realize that it's not a 9 to 5 schedule. Maybe you find that you are a creative night owl. And the important thing is that you are working when you are going to work best, so that you're not wasting your time and your peak productive moments. This will also allow you to better tackle the other things in your life that might not, really require peak mental performance, such as going to the gym, responding to emails, or paying bills. I, for one, know that I am not a creative night owl. My creative time is basically right when I get out of bed in the morning. And so for me, I'm lucky at Trello. My work schedule can be fairly, it's not it doesn't have to be too dialed in to any set schedule, and I have the freedom to work from home sometimes. So for me, if I have a task that I really want to dive into right away in the morning, I know I can just work from home that day and dive right into that task, because that's when I'm going to be most creative and effective. Other days, maybe I'll go into the office, and it's not that I'm going to be creating action items on a task, but I might be just brainstorming ideas. And so the subway ride into work can be or the commute into work can be a really useful way to leverage that creative time when I'm not actually acting on something and creating something. I'm just kind of using my creative time to think best. But once again, it's really about finding out the schedule that works best for you, and hopefully be able to have a conversation with your manager at work to see if you can have flexibility in your schedule to really work when you're most productive. So when trying to manage your time effectively, it's always really important to know, that you shouldn't be too hard on yourself. You have to be forgiving. Not all hours are the same. You might have an amazing productive hour one moment, but then the next one might be a dud. But being hard on yourself and feeling guilty about that dud hour only means that you'll carry over that lack of productivity and bad mood into your next potentially productive hour. Understand that you have productive moments and less productive moments, and harness the productive moments to get as much done as possible. One important tip from productivity pro Jess Martin in this regard is to create margins. And this means don't create such a rigid schedule that you can't let productive moments flow into the next. By having too rigid of a schedule, you're going to instantly create burnout because you're not going to allow for breaks or, for creative thought to continue until its natural end. I'm sure you heard it time and again, but creating a work-life balance is key. Working 80 plus hours a week is going to burn you out, and you need to step away from work and let your brain recharge. So doing a creative activity, going for a walk, exercising, these are ways that you can really come back to your work and your tasks replenished and recharged, and be able to approach them from a fresh angle. So I know this all sounds like a lot, and ultimately you need to come up with a system that works best for you. Try different things to see what works and what doesn't work. For me, I love a mix of the Pomodoro heads down 25-minute blocks to get tasks done. And I really love time boxing, making sure that I limit my work to a certain area of my life so I have time to recharge my brain and come back to my tasks with a fresh perspective, a fresh energy, and a fresh mindset. So anyway, as I said, there are also many ways to manage time. Those are just a few that I think are easily applicable in our busy lives. Now let's take a look at some of the tools that can, help you prioritize your tasks and get things done. There's a lot of tools out there that will help you enhance your productivity, get more done, and help you collaborate with your team. So let me just go over some of mine and my team's favorite tools and why they're so effective. One of those tools, of course, is Trello, both in my work life with my team at Trello and with the rest of my life's teams, like my family, friends, and bandmates. I use Trello for everything. I'm also guessing that many of you are attending the webinar use Trello as well, which is great. So aside from using Trello to track projects, manage webinars, create content, and collaborate, we developed a couple internal, productivity enhancing Trello hacks that I think are going to help boost your team productivity. So one thing is team checklists. One way is to create a checklist for everything that I plan on getting done during that week. And everyone on my marketing team creates a checklist as well, and we create them all on the same card on our marketing team's board. And what's great about this is that it creates a level of transparency with the team. Everyone can see what I'm working on and what I've accomplished, which minimizes the need for someone to interrupt me with a status update on a specific task. And therefore, it boosts all of our productivity because my time's not wasted and someone doesn't have to waste their time, hunting me down in Slack or in the office. And, I can also easily link to any specific Trello cards or boards and checklist items in case anyone on the team, wants to dig deeper into what I'm working on or get some assets or information that I've created. I think another great aspect of using checklists in this fashion is that it gives us a shared sense of accomplishment each day and at the end of each week. Plus, science shows that checking off checklist items actually releases dopamine in the brain. And dopamine not only gives us that sense of satisfaction and euphoria, but actually motivates us to accomplish more. One thing you do also is you can set up your checklist in advance as a template by creating a checklist with everyone's name, an individual checklist for everyone with their name on it, and assigning everyone to that Trello card. And then you can use the card repeater power up and have a copy made of your template card, say every Monday at 7 a.m. So that way, when everyone gets into the office on Monday, that card where people are going to add their tasks for the week is already made. No one has to worry about whose responsibility it is to create the weekly checklist card, and no one has to waste any time doing it. It's just easily automated. So another great little Trello productivity hack has to do with team meetings. And as many of you know, meetings can be a major productivity buzzkill where they often have no formal agenda and they kind of just drone on. So like a checklist that structures what you're going to do from day to day or week to week, a meeting agenda should be well defined with a structured list of what is to be discussed during that meeting. Every meeting should also include who is going to lead the discussion on each topic. Defining the topics to be covered means there is a definitive end to the meeting. When all the topics have been discussed, the meeting is over, and no one's time is wasted because of a lack of agenda. I have to really commend my boss, Stella, for really helping develop and improving our process with the meeting list. And so, while this could simply be a list on a sheet of paper, on a whiteboard, or a shared document, we find it really most effective to use a Trello board. So here, we create a list of everything we want to discuss during the next meeting. Anyone on the team can add a card for what they would like to discuss and add themselves to the card so that the meeting lead knows who to call on to speak next. The more informative a card is, the more context the rest of the team will have before, during, and after the meeting. And as topics are covered, they can be removed from the list. And once there are no more cards on the list, then the meeting is done. It's a simple and effective way to save a whole lot of everyone's time and sanity. Plus, we work with a distributed team around the world. So this allows everyone to be on the same page and in the same place when we're having a meeting. We'll meet, in Zoom or appear in for video chat, and everyone can see in the same location exactly what's being discussed. It's also really beneficial too, and saves time and keeps us productive because if someone's absent on vacation or sick and they miss the meeting, they can come back to work and be able to go and see everything that was discussed right on the Trello card. And we don't have to have anyone else on the team worry about giving updates or explaining because it's all accessible right there, which saves everyone a lot of time. Of course, Trello makes everything in your life more productive and right on the surface, but there's also a ton of cool features and shortcuts that can help you get things done quicker, provide focus, and keep you productive. So what I'm going to do is actually hop out of my slides here and into Trello right now, just to show off some of my favorite little tips and tricks and shortcuts that I think might help you be more productive in your day-to-day. Please note that there are many more awesome tips that I just don't have time to cover right now, but I think maybe that might have to be the topic of a future webinar. So let me just hop out of my slides real quick. And so one thing that's really cool are keyboard shortcuts. Let me actually maximize my window here. You can just hit the question mark key on your keyboard to see all the different keyboard shortcuts that exist in Trello. There's a ton. I'm not going to go through them all, but some of my really favorite ones, I love using the Q shortcut to surface all the cards that I'm assigned or added to on a board. This way I can quickly get perspective and focus on what I'm working on, but then hit Q again and see what the rest of the team is working on. Also, if the spacebar is a really great way to quickly add yourself or remove yourself from a card without having to open it or anything. Just hover your mouse and hit space. Super convenient way to just go through cards and add yourself to them. If you want to do a quick edit on the card, you can hit the E key. This brings you right into typing mode. You can edit labels, change members, move the card, copy it, change a due date, or archive it right from there. There's also the C key. So I don't want to mess up my board too much, but you can hit C to archive cards in a click. And let's see, the D key to add due dates is super useful for me because I like to work by due dates. It helps structure my weeks and months by setting timelines for when I need to get things done. And the last one that really I use all the time is if I'm creating a new card, I can hit I can hit Shift Enter, and that's going to open me right up into that card. And then I can just save and go right into the card back, and then I can start adding a description to the card or creating a checklist. Those are just a couple of my favorite hotkeys, shortcuts that you can use. Once again, check out the question mark. I hit question mark on your keyboard to view them all. Another really cool one is being able to import a bunch of cards from a list really quickly as new cards or new checklist items by just copying and pasting that list into a new card or checklist item. So for instance, let's say I'm going to do an event. I'm going to make a list for event to-dos. What I can do is actually take this list that I already had from somewhere else, copy it, paste it right in here, and Trello can create 9 separate cards from each of these 9 separated list items. The same thing can apply to checklist. So if I just have my checklist of event to-dos, I can paste them right in here. And now I have separated checklist items. I also use this a lot in my personal life when meal planning, and I can put together steps for a recipe or the ingredients and create shopping lists easily and just check things off as I go. So power-ups, if you're not familiar with, power-ups are available right here in the menu. You can use any power-up on a board and on a team board. And if you have Trello Business Class, you get unlimited power-ups on your boards. But what they do is they kind of integrate all the apps you love or add additional features right to your board. So it keeps me productive in that I don't need to jump out of Trello to get information I need. One really useful one, like I said, with due dates is the calendar power up, because it allows me to visualize all my tasks in a calendar view. And I can also import those tasks into a personal iCal feed. The integrations with other apps are really exciting as well. So for instance, if you use MailChimp for campaigns, you can attach a campaign to get data, and get campaign data loaded right in your Trello card. Looks like, you know what? Looks like I might have to re-author. There we go. It was slow for a second. I'm gonna probably blame it on the fact that I'm hosting this webinar. But anyway, I can open my card, and without having to go into MailChimp, I can easily see all the stats for an email that was sent in a campaign. I can view a template for an email all right here. These are things that really save me a lot of time and keep me productive. There's also Google Drive as a power-up where I can keep all my assets, right in one card for a campaign, and just know where to go to get them all. I don't have to dig around for anything. Let's see. One really cool thing is if you're still working with people that use email, we try and minimize email, and so you can actually create cards from emails. Every board has its own email address that's unique to you. And if you forward an email from your personal email address on the board, it'll create a card for that email, which is a great way to turn emails into actionable items. Also, every card has an email address too that's unique to you as a user. And so you could forward an email to a card specifically and add email information. Maybe there's a back and forth with a client and there's some feedback. You can have that here as a comment on your Trello card, and therefore you don't have to jump into email or dig through messy email chains to actually get the information you need. Another quick tip is I just think using templates as much as possible really improves productivity. So let's say we have a process for blogging, and it's everything that we need to do in our blogging process. So if I'm going to create a new article, I can just copy this checklist right from the card, and now nothing falls between the cracks. I don't have to think about what I need to do for a blog post every time. Like I can just copy that checklist as a template. I can even have a card like this, copy the card, and now I can go to my new card and name it what my article is going to be about. The same applies to boards. You can copy boards. So if you have projects that you constantly do, repetitively do, or maybe it's retrospectives after a sprint or a project, you can have your lists and cards all laid out and hop right into them. So once again, there's a million shortcuts, but I just wanted to show you a couple of my favorite ones that I think you can probably apply in your day-to-day and start saving time and getting more done. So I'm going to hop into my presentation again. So here's some more tools aside from Trello that we think are awesome. When it comes to getting to-do lists done, that means you need to focus. And focusing is key to productivity. So one awesome tool is OneTab. And what OneTab does is it takes all of the open tabs you have open in your browser and combines them into just one list on one tab, as you can see here. And so this is really important because by having the distraction of all those open tabs, it means that you're going to constantly be looking at the other tabs, thinking about all the other things that you need to get done, and you're really not focusing on the task at hand. So by shrinking all those open browser tabs into one list, it keeps you focused on the tasks that you need to do without the constant reminder of all the other tasks that come next. So some studies have suggested that the average person checks their phone up to 150 times a day, which is not only a major distraction, but it's definitely a productivity killer. So here's a fun fact. if you're focused on something else and you look up to see your notifications on your phone, you've context switched. And it can take actually as long as half an hour to get yourself back into the focus mode that you have left by checking that notification on your phone. So there are three cool tools that can help you, keep you focused on your work and not on your phone. They're Flipboard, Moment, and Offtime. And these are great ways to silence distractions on your phone and in your browser and make sure that you're not missing out on any key information in your life. So Offtime lets you set time blocks where you can temporarily turn off notifications. You can even set categories like family and work so that you will remain connected to certain areas of your life. And there's even analytics about your phone usage to give you a better perspective about how much you're actually really using your phone during the day. Similar to Offtime is Flipped. Flipped actually initiates a custom lock screen complete with a timer. So you can also set emergency contacts so that important people in your life can always get through. Another interesting aspect of Flipped is that they offer an opportunity to connect with the rest of their community and even complete challenges with others. So, kind of puts the fun in focus, you could say, as my colleague Lauren Moon likes to say. Moment is the third tool, and Moment, which is iOS only, Moment provides you with daily data about your phone usage. And so you can set a limit that you don't like to go over, and if you do, Moment will actually blank out your screen and remind you to set your phone down and chill out in the real world. And so the interface has a lot of has a nice soothing traffic light color UI pattern to let you know that if you're, in the red with your usage. And so it's a great way to just force yourself to put down that phone and get back to work and get back to the work you're doing. So another great tool, especially for those working with clients, is Harvest. Harvest allows you to track time and keep track of how much time you are spending on each task. What's really cool is that you can kind of use this as a productivity hack because you have, if you have tasks that you are repeating regularly and you're keeping track of time, you can see if you're spending more time or less time than you should on these tasks and maybe be able to reconsider how you can be more effective in getting that task done based on the amount of time it's taking. There's actually even a Harvest power-up for Trello, so you can start timers directly from your Trello cards, which saves you that whole context switching thing. Automation these days is key. I could probably, even do a whole webinar just on awesome bots to help you be productive in your life. But we often have many frequent processes that while they might take small amounts of time, they actually add up to massive time wasters and productivity killers. And these tasks might be, adding data from forms to spreadsheets or scheduling tweets on social media. The awesome thing is that a lot of these tasks can be automated with tools like If This Then That and Zapier. So for instance, if you use an app like Typeform or Wufoo for forms, you can have that data automatically added to a Google Sheet or have a card created on a Trello CRM board. Both of these tools integrate with a lot of your favorite apps and can really add a lot of time to your day. And they can also provide you, with more energy to focus on the tasks that really require some brain power. So I definitely highly recommend checking out, seeing what you can really automate in your life with If This and That and Zapier. So the last topic and tool I want to cover is around team communication. I know a lot of this is about personal productivity hacks, but I think, in this day and age, working with teams and, having effective workflow with teams is ultimately going to increase your productivity, right? We often don't work strictly by ourselves. So I also want to discuss, with regards to Slack, team communication, better communication with the right tools, and just having some guidelines around that can really have a big impact on productivity. So when it comes to in the moment team communication and brainstorming sessions, we like to use Slack because it allows us to communicate with a globally distributed team quite simply, anyone can be anywhere. So no matter where anyone is, we can have fluid conversations and create actionable items and go over tasks and projects that we're working on, and then move those tasks over to Trello. By using Trello and Slack, we don't have to send a single email for any project really, and everyone has all the information and and the individuals that they need to collaborate with. It's all super easily accessible. So Slack and Trello can create kind of the ultimate productivity powerhouse because they work seamlessly together with both the Trello app for Slack and the Slack Power Up in Trello. And with the Trello app for Slack, team members can interact with Trello. They can add and edit cards and more without having to leave a conversation in Slack and go into Trello. So it's a great way to save time and save clicks between apps, and it keeps you and everyone else, really more productive. The Trello app for Slack is totally free in the Slack app directory. And all you have to do is connect your Slack team with your Trello team to get started. And you could do really cool things like just interact right with your Trello boards directly from Slack. The Slack Power Up in Trello can be enabled as one of your board's free power ups. And this helps you, also helps your team keep your team productive, but from the Trello side of things. So for instance, if I'm working in Trello and want feedback on a blog post that I'm writing, or maybe a newsletter I've created, or an image, or anything really, you want code review, from a developer. What I can do is I can send the card directly from Trello to a Slack channel associated with that team. This means that I don't have to change what I'm doing to request feedback. And with the Trello app for Slack installed on the Slack end, integrated with Trello, my team doesn't even have to leave Slack if they are currently in there to add comments and leave feedback on my Trello card. They can add comments directly from Slack, which is a pretty awesome way to totally erase context switching, from the collaborative environment. Another cool thing about the Slack Power Up is that I can set reminders, which helps keep me productive. If I can't get to something today, I can set a reminder in Slack for a Trello card and make sure that maybe I need to be reminded tomorrow, next week. This way, I don't have to keep thinking about it. It doesn't have to be in my mind as something to be done next day or next week. I just know that I'm going to get a reminder for it, and that'll focus me again on that task when I'm actually ready to do it. So of course, while all these tools can make us more productive, it's also quite possible for them to have the opposite effect if proper team communication guidelines are not established. So it's important to set up a workflow so that these tools work together so that you're maximizing how you get things done with yourself and with your team. Essentially, one needs to consider what tools are most effective for communicating certain things. If it's in the moment, you might want to be in an app like Slack. However, if it's more long-term project planning, then Trello can be a better way to break down those tasks. Because they'll take a longer period of time to accomplish, and you can log comments and input on Trello cards so that they can be more easily referenced a day, a week, or a month later. Oops. It's also really important to set expectations for how you want to be communicated with and how to communicate with others within these apps so that you maintain a productive workday and that you're able to get things done on a personal level, but also be available for your team's needs. So this could be letting people know in Slack that you're going into do not disturb mode so that you can get more done and go heads down on a task. It also means letting people know that you are using apps to silence phone notifications in case someone is trying to reach you on that level. In our marketing team at Trello, we have what we call Maker Days on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where teammates can have heads down work days without meetings and without the expectation to be available in Slack. But it's really important that they let everyone else know that they're taking them so that our communication expectations are properly managed. We also encourage communication to occur in Slack over team channels and to minimize the use of direct messages. This way, anyone on the team can go to the right channel for a project and understand the decisions being made and the work getting done. If people are communicating too much in direct messages, productivity will be hurt because information might not be available for someone to move forward on a project. Or it means someone will have to bother another team member to get the information they need because it was not available for them to find on their own. The same applies to Trello boards. Having team visible boards means that colleagues can, get the information and perspective on a project they need without having to ask for access to a private board. It also opens the door for more constructive input from more people, which can lead to better results and, a stronger product. So I think by having a set of tools to communicate and collaborate effectively as a team and be able to focus and be productive as an individual means that you're not going to be working in silos and potentially doubling your efforts, which will make, for a more productive you and more successful you, but also a more productive and successful company. And so I know we've really just kind of touched the tip of the iceberg. I can't believe how long this has gone on. I was afraid this might run pretty long. There was a whole lot of stuff I even wanted to cover, like productivity hacks for setting up the best work environment. But we can always have new webinars down the road, more webinars to really dial into that stuff. So I hope you've gotten some takeaways, some new tools and techniques you might be able to try out, both for your personal life and your personal productivity, but also things that you can employ with your team, because ultimately having a more productive and effective team means that you're going to have a more productive and effective work life. So as I mentioned earlier, I'll be sending out a recording of the webinar, plus a link to the slide deck, as well as links to blog posts that cover a lot of these topics in much greater depth. So that way, if there's anything that interests you in particular, you can really learn more about it. Looks like I have a couple minutes. I'm going to see if there are... Oh, you know what? Okay, yeah. So someone asked if there's a PDF of the presentation. I'm going to make sure that there's a link to a publicly viewable slide deck in Google Slides, and also I'll make sure to export a PDF. This is pretty cool. A bunch of people actually shared some of their tips and tricks for productivity. So with some of the time remaining, I want to share some of those real quick. Jim Martell says that he has a plugin on his Chrome browser called Tunnel Vision, which links to Trello and shows him what he's set up in Trello, such that when I open a new browser tab, he's greeted with what he really should be doing, perhaps instead of what he was about to do. Now, I said if you could just develop the habit of using Trello effectively, so that TV shows me something useful. That's awesome, Jim. Yeah, that's a pretty cool tunnel vision. I've heard of that. Definitely worth checking out as a way of focusing what you're doing, being able to focus on what you're supposed to do in Trello that week, as opposed to what you might do when you open your browser otherwise. Gary Lyons says, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People works for me. Yep, that's a great read. He also says, as a certified Scrum Master, the Agile framework. Definitely agree that I think we have some webinars. If you go to trello.com/webinars on how developing an Agile framework in Trello, and I definitely think that it is a way to be more productive, not only as a developer, but you can employ some of those strategies from a marketing sense even. So Brian Jacobson says, to face fears, every day do the first task you most dislike, most resistant to, or most afraid of. Quote, if you have to eat a frog today, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. if you have to eat 2 frogs, eat the ugliest one first, says Brian Tracy. Love that. For anyone looking to check out Pomodoro Technique, Hadrian LaCroix recommends Toggl, Toggl. That's a great way to implement Pomodoro. And Leah Labasa says that she's tried more than 10 Pomodoro-like apps, but the only one stuck to for a year is the Productivity Challenge, which I'm going to actually add into the chat room. Leah left a link here if anyone wants to check out the Productivity Challenge. So let's see. A couple minutes left. Let me see if we can answer a couple quick questions here. Thanks for all the tips and tricks, everyone. Those were awesome. So let's see. So one question is, when do you tend to plan your day and week? I kind of like to set a vision for planning my week on Monday. For work, at Trello, I work Monday through Friday, pretty typical 9 to 5, 10 to 6 schedule, or 9 to 6 schedule. So I like to kind of, on my way to work on Monday, start thinking about my agenda for the week and, set realistic expectations in what I will be able to do during the week, knowing that there's probably going to be some things thrown at me throughout the week um, that I wasn't expecting. Something always comes up, right? As far as my day, unless something has a due date, unless something is like really due that day, like this webinar had to be done today. So, I knew I had to plan that. I couldn't plan that for tomorrow or later this afternoon. Otherwise, I like to keep, to be honest, I like to keep my tasks flexible. I like to have a vision for the week, but I know that I'm not always going to be inspired to work on any one particular thing at a given moment. So by planning, maybe I have, um, like I said, the two tasks I want to get done up front, and a couple tasks that I want to get done later in the week. It affords me some flexibility to juggle things around. I never know. I might wake up. I'm working on a new website content for Trello, and I might wake up totally inspired tomorrow or one day to do that. And so I want to be able to afford enough flexibility in my schedule to really make sure that if I'm inspired and feeling creative on something, that I can jump into it. Someone asked, how much time do you set aside to plan and prioritize? I actually probably I don't like try and spend too much time planning, because you always risk that you know you might just wind up spending so much time planning something that you actually don't start creating or doing something. I think a lot of value comes out of just jumping into, not blindly, but having a plan set up and then doing stuff. Doing the work allows you, I think, to come up with better work, because I can iterate on the work that I'm doing. If I just am planning, if I'm spending too much time planning and not actually doing anything, and then it comes time for that thing that I need to get done, I might not really have as much time to execute and iterate on that task as much as I would have liked to. So to me, it's more about just trying to grasp how long something's going to take, who else I'm going to need help with, and then balancing, who else I'm going to work with and something, and then balancing that. Let's see. We're at 3 o'clock, so I'm just going to try and see if I can pick up one more question. Oh, here's interesting. Any suggestions for encouraging adoption with anyone, family, team members at work we are collaborating with? Um, so I think one way to really get people to collaborate better is, on a lot of our boards, we have this like start here list, and we have a card that kind of explains how to use the board. And by setting that up, someone can open a team visible board, and they can see, right away, understand what the workflow is, how tasks are assigned. Um, and I think it provides a sense of ease for adopting, and collaborating easier. I think it's also important to have someone, I might add myself as like I might add myself to this card on how to use this board, and establish that I'm the person that someone should come to with any tasks. If you're a manager or you're the one that's leading a project, it's in some ways it's kind of up to you a little bit to move tasks along, to follow up on tasks that aren't getting done, and communicate with your team. I think that having a sense of ownership can really help with getting people to adopt tools, because you can set up good guidelines and best practices and communicate those, and then I think people will feel more comfortable learning how to use that tool, because they'll be able to use from a role model and example. So anyway, that's about all the time we have today. If I didn't get to answer your questions, so sorry. I didn't expect the presentation to run quite so long, but just email us support@trello.com. Be glad to answer any questions. Also, if you have any productivity tips or any feedback about what you'd love to see in future webinars, don't hesitate to drop us a line. Once again, that's support@trello.com. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the week. And thank you so much for joining me today.